Hey there, Board Game Brody here with Let's Table It, where we get games to the table. Like this one right here, it's The Mandalorian Adventures by Unexpected Games. It's a 1-to-4 player card selection game where you play out the stories of The Mandalorian right on your tabletop. If you play solo, you'll play as 2 characters throughout the game. And if not, if you're playing with more players, some missions only allow 2 players where you can play, as other characters in the sandbox mode where you just won't follow the exact events that happened in The Mandalorian. But 2 players is the sweet spot for some of the missions, but others, it's just fine to have up to 4. And I almost forgot, I will be using these acrylic character pieces instead of the normal cardboard standees that actually come with the game. And these 8 acrylic pieces are exclusive accessories that are part of the Hobby Next program. They do not come with your purchase of the game, and they can be acquired by visiting your local hobby store that is participating in the Hobby Next program. But they do make the game look very nice. You will have a deck of cards called the Guide Deck that will guide you through the chapters or the missions in the game. And these cards should not be shuffled, but if something happens, it can be reorganized using the ID number on those cards. This deck introduces changes as you play through the campaign of the game, or the campaign-ish of the game. You will go through cards until it says stop, and so you really will continue when the deck says go, and then when it will say continue, you only will read that further after the blank, like after a win or after you lose a mission or something like that. So really, this deck will help you through the chapters in the game. The game comes with a mission book, and you will flip the book open to the chapter that you are playing, and it will contain the map right there in that book. The left side lists the mission briefing, which includes the map rules and possibly some additional setup instructions. I'm only going to show the first mission here, as I don't want to spoil anything that, others might want to experience on their own when playing through this game. For this first mission, we will be playing as the Mandalorian and IG-11, and we are supposed to capture the asset, which we know to be Grogu. We do this by being in the threat space where Grogu is located at, and we lose the game if any character is defeated. We each have our characters with the character card that shows our health, our character standee, which is placed on the space with this play icon at the beginning of the game. And we also have a reference card and 12 character cards, which are shuffled together at the beginning. And we take the top 4 cards to form our beginning hand of cards for the game. Now, you can play the game with different difficulties, and the novice difficulty uses the novice side of the cards, the standard uses the standard side of cards, and then the veteran uses the standard side of each card, but then limits your hand to 3 instead of the normal 4. And I'll be explaining and showing everything just like the standard game is. So players take turns by taking 2 different actions on their turn. The possible actions are listed on the board, which are move, attack, intel, and plan. When choosing an action, you will use one of your cards that has a number listed on the top left, either a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4. That is that card's strength, indicating how powerful that action will be. So you will play a card from your hand into one of these locations to take the indicated action. Let's go over what these do. For each mission, everyone will start and be located at the play icon on the map, and you'll be able to move 1 space for each strength point shown on your card. If you enter a space with an enemy or a face-down threat, which are any of the circle, the triangle, the square, or the pentagon tokens, then you must end your movement. But other characters or any face-up features do not end your movement. Any space can have any number of characters, tokens, or enemies located on them, and if you do end up sharing your space with a face-down threat token, then it is revealed. Each map might also have different terrain. Walls are thick gray lines. You cannot go through those. Locked doors are indicated, and you cannot move through a locked door until you unlock it. Elevation is shown by dotted lines, but you can still count range through the dotted lines when an enemy is attacking or you are attacking the enemy. If you are moving an enemy that is up on an elevated spot, you will need to first move through the normal line, indicating they are now on the ground level. Some spaces have star icons. These are spawn spaces for more enemies to come out. Forbidden spaces are surrounded by red stripes, and these are not spaces that you can move into. During the game, if you start your movement in a space with an enemy, then you can freely move out of that space as well. You don't have to stay there. Lastly, I'd like to mention that some enemies have abilities that can deal damage if you stop your movement within one space of that enemy. This is called Sentry, and it's indicated by this symbol found on the enemy token itself. When you are ready to attack, which means that you are, in range 1 or in the same space as an enemy, then you will play a card that deals that much damage to the enemy. Each enemy has their listed health on their token, and if you deal damage equal to or greater than its health, it's removed from the map. You can also attack face down threats, hoping that it is an enemy. You will reveal the threat when doing this, and if it is an enemy, you will deal it damage equal to your card's value. If it's not an enemy, then you will reveal it, but no damage is dealt. The third action is the intel action, where you will secretly look at a face-down threat token, or you can move an enemy. You might want to look at a threat token to determine if it is an enemy or a feature. You will do this by choosing a card where its value matches the range of where that threat token is located relative to your character. So if you are 3 spaces away from a threat token, then you place down a 3 card, and you can then look at that threat without showing anyone else, and then placing it back face down. Information can then be discussed to help with strategy, like don't go there, or it's an enemy, or we definitely need to go there at some point. Or even if we are in a hard spot, this could help. Now, instead of looking at a threat, you can move an enemy within range of your skill card strength and then move it 1 space of your choice where you want it. This can help you avoid abilities like Sentry. This action cannot be used through walls, locked doors, or forbidden areas. Lastly is the plan action, where you will gain powerful cards to use in the future. You will place a card down and draw the number of cards indicated by the value shown on your skill card. If this is 3, then you will draw 3 plan cards. You keep 1 card and place it below your character card. Then you can place 1 face down on top of the planning deck so that you potentially can get it next time someone does that. And the others are then discarded. You can only have 1 copy of a card at a time. Some cards say bad luck, which means they do nothing. You can never keep these cards. Each card really does specify its effect and when it can be used. The defend card is one of the rare ways to block or prevent 1 damage, which can be important at times and may be the difference of winning or losing the game. Now, those are the 4 main actions, but some cards have special actions, some with a listed icon on the top left of that card, and others with written text. The bonus icons will give you a +1 strength when played in the action slot matching that icon, but the value on the card stays the same for the sake of the event step, which I will explain soon. Skill abilities and text are activated when a card is played in an action slot matching the type of action highlighted on that left side. The skill ability is used in addition to the normal ability using the card's strength value. If a card is played and doesn't match the action slot, then you just don't use the special ability and you perform the action with the card's strength value as normal. After a player plays 2 cards, so each player gets 2 actions, then the event step might get triggered. In this step, you will check each slot or each action and check if the strength of the cards in that area plus the disrupt tokens are either 4 or less, 5, or 6 or more. For slots where the total is 6 or more, you will resolve a crisis. This is different for each mission, and it's listed on a box on the game board for that mission. For this mission, a damage token is placed on this track, and when it fills up, they are removed and a reinforcement enemy is added to the star space with the least amount of enemies on it. So then after resolving the crisis for those spots with 6 or more value on it, then you will also resolve an event. To do this, you will draw the top card from the event deck, which will often make enemies either move, attack, or spawn. The current player will make choices. For example, if an enemy is the same amount of spaces between players, the current player decides which way the enemy will move or who they will attack. Enemies will always move toward the nearest character, but you can choose the enemy that moves if there are, multiple characters of the same type. When it lists enemies to attack, you again will choose, and if it does attack, you will place a damage token on that character's card. If damage equals or exceeds that character's health, that player is defeated and all players lose the game. If you are unable to do any of the actions listed on that card, then you will instead spawn an enemy onto the nearest star space. After you resolve the crisis and resolve the event card, you will return the cards to a discard pile near each player's skill deck. Tokens are discarded into the token pool. If you have a slot that has a value of 5, then you will only resolve an event. And if a slot has a value of 4 or less, you leave the cards and don't resolve a crisis nor an event for that slot. Sometimes you won't trigger any steps to be done, while other times you will trigger both slots from your chosen actions. After the next player performs their turn by placing out 2 cards in different slots, then you do the event step, checking values of each slot again and continuing this over and over again. You win if you complete your listed goal. In this case, for this mission, we need to find the 2 circle tokens that give us access to the bunker, and it will then unlock the door. And then one of the 2 triangle tokens, we should find Grogu, our asset. Again, this is for the first mission, and the game is played over a series of missions that the guide deck will help to organize. It will teach you some new rules as they come up. Players will gain more cards and be able to play as different characters. There are envelopes as well in this game that will provide additional components to play the game while exploring and performing all the scenes seen in the first season of The Mandalorian. There are some character limitations, as sometimes there are more players than available characters for a mission. I kind of mentioned this at the beginning. To play these missions, you can either play sandbox mode, which allows you to use any character in any mission instead of following the actual events of The Mandalorian, or you can play with the listed characters and share control of all the characters so that when it's a player's turn, they can choose which player to control. Both of these are compatible with the guide deck, and if playing solo, you will be playing the game controlling the 2 characters at all time in every mission. And, well, that's The Mandalorian Adventures by Unexpected Games. Of course, there are more things that you will learn while playing through the adventures, but this will give you, a start on Mission 1, and the event deck will lead you through additional rules while you go through the different stories of The Mandalorian from Season 1. After you slowly add more cards and more rules, you can then choose which missions to play with, the different characters or with the added cards, and you can explore their decks that gives, different abilities that match that character from the story that, you watched on television. You will find some missions where there can be a traitor as well, which, adds some different challenges and gives a different feel to the game. But there isn't a lot of missions that have the traitor in it, but ones that, actually happens with the story. So be prepared for that. Many missions you will have Grogu with you as well, and you can unlock a way where, he has his own cards and you can use some of his abilities when you are with him. Instead of drawing back all your cards from your deck, you can draw one from Grogu's deck and place it in your hand, and these are very powerful actions. The cooperation is key in this game because damage is sure to come, but you just need to last enough without losing all your health. Many times you might need to protect a character more than others that are out there and choose enemies to attack or move toward certain other characters to help with those other ones if this is applicable. The game recommends using all actions instead of just move and fight, as you will be activating the event step more often when doing that. But when using all the actions, you can do more actually. I'd especially try to use special cards that might focus on a certain action for that action if possible. There are reasons you might not be able to do this. Only, having 4 different cards in your hand to choose from sometimes make it limiting, but that's just how it goes sometimes. Some special cards also allow you to count the strength roll as 5, no matter, what the actual value of all the combined cards are. And this can be used strategically in a way where a 1 card would actually activate the event. And in this instance, your powerful card would, do the same as a 1 card. So there are some fun combinations of cards to use with some cool actions attached to them. When you know that your deck is a little better, you can also plan somewhat to use those cool cards and set up for them when you anticipate them coming in your hand. Although the guide deck and playing through the missions is probably the best way to play through the game, I don't think it has to end there. You will unlock everything after going through the missions, and then you can use all the fixings to play whatever missions you would like with all the cards, and with some added complexity with all the, what gets added to the game while you play through the event deck. So it still can be fun after going through all of them. The game is organized in a fun way where, the circle, the triangle, the square threat tokens for each of the missions serve a purpose as to what might appear on them. Enemies range from easy to hard, and it makes your intel action very important at times. You don't want to land on a threat that ends up being a 5 strength enemy if you can prevent that from happening by looking at it. But when you have a good setup to attack, sometimes you might just, as well attack a random threat in hopes that you kill that enemy. If not, then hey, maybe you found a feature and that can do something good for you anyways. The missions rarely ever got easier as we played through. The event cards made sure enemies continued to move and attack us. And if they didn't do anything, then, more reinforcements were added to the map, which make it harder. Sometimes we like when a card maybe moved some enemies, but they were, out of range to attack, or maybe they, didn't attack. So the event cards aren't always super bad, but they do change the board towards being harder by, again, moving enemies or enemies attacking characters or spawning new characters or enemies onto the board. Enemies also get different abilities that are focused on that you can, take into account as well. Sentry is the one that you need to watch out for at the beginning of the game, but Grapple makes it harder to move out of a space with an enemy, as it will give you a damage if you do so. Some have special mission effects, or Sabotage adds a disrupt token to an action to make it so that, it will trigger more events. Now, I felt like the rulebook was pretty straight on. It explained everything. I never questioned on how something would actually work or was confused about anything. The game wasn't too complicated, which was nice. I played it with my kids 9 and 7 years old, and they were super excited about the game due to, being the Mandalorian, but also they have played the initiative with me and they found some common concepts used, so they were able to pick things up pretty quickly. We, had to help our 7-year-old, so it's not a game for kids to just pick up and play, but since it's a cooperative game, you're able to help them with some added explanation and giving suggestions on what they should do. The missions matched the show pretty well, so it felt nice to know what should happen according to what we knew should happen. Ultimately, me and my family really enjoyed the game. You are placing out cards to actions that will potentially trigger mission effects or events to make your objective harder. This is not really a campaign game, but it has its own way to teach and add stuff to the game as you play through it. So at the end of the game, you can play any mission with any of the unlocked stuff that you got. Again, this is Brody with Let's Table It, where we get games to the table, like the Mandalorian Adventures here by Unexpected Games. Please like and subscribe to our channel. We are working hard to bring to you videos like this one, so you know if these games are ones that you want to get to your own table. Oh, wrong mask. This is the way.